It says the
Okay,
broadcast
we're
is live.
we're live. We're live. So thank you all for tuning into this broadcast on Sandeep Bamzai's book Princeton, published by Rupa. So before India became Hindustan, that we know, before freedom fighters evoked concepts of equality, self-sufficiency, the exploits of the Raj were the norm, and even before that, here stood Princeton. British rule broke India into two categories: territories directly under the rule of the British and those ruled by the princes who were in a subsidiary alliance. This book is a granular breaking down of the destinies of these little empires and the mesh of complicated treaties and diplomatic arrangements that needed to be flattened out to set and draw the new borders of India that could be sustained. Since the Litfest is named after Kalinga, which was a grand empire of the East, let's first talk about Orissa. So, welcome Sandeep ji to the broadcast.
Happy to be here. Thank you.
My first question to you is in 1972, after Indira Gandhi's landslide electoral victory, privy purses and privileges granted to the rulers of the erstwhile princely states were withdrawn. Now, though the move was designed to sort of expunge royalty from politics, it rebuilt royal leaders within the new political system, as is seen in the case of the Swatantra Party in West Orissa, which put up a strong fight against the Congress, and it was alive for about, say, 2 decades. Now, my question is, did the democratic system make it easier for the princes to thrive since they inherited a pocket bureau?
Well, I don't really think so because if you go back in time and look at the 2 3 years prior to the decolonization per se, which is independence, where Lord Mountbatten came in replacing Lord Wavell, the idea was that India would become independent by June 30th, 1948. He actually abbreviated the timeline and chose to give independence to India and Pakistan on August 14 and 15, respectively. So the princes were actually in a tizzy because they thought that this would never happen because uh, through paramountcy and their ties with the British, they would probably remain independent and outside the ambit of both the dominions, Hindustan and Pakistan. And that is the story of Princestan, how a section of the diabolical princes actually managed to a large extent, or at least attempted to stay out of the ambit of Hindustan and Pakistan till they were brought to heel by Pandit Nehru, Sardar Patel, and Lord Mountbatten in what I believe is a relay run because the baton was passed on from one to the other and then finally to Sardar Patel and VP Menon. So the princes never wanted independence. There are princes like, of course, Maharaja of Bikaner, who played an instrumental role in convincing the Hindu princes to align with Hindustan. Maharaja Patiala played a very important role. But there was a rump of the larger princes, led by the Nawab of Bhopal, the Nizam of Hyderabad, the Maharaja of Travancore, and of course, the Maharaja of Kashmir, Jammu and Kashmir, Hari Singh, who vacillated right till the end and even beyond independence, just like the Nizam vacillated right till the end, till he again was brought into the loop by Sardar Patel through Operation Polo, or police action as they call it much later. So there is the Nawab of Junagadh, who is smaller, who again tried to stay out of the ambit. There are various, I mean, 565 princes, but the larger princely states, Kashmir, which at the time of independence was larger than France, mind you, in terms of landmass. The Nizam of Hyderabad, who had a huge empire, and he convinced the British that he would be called His Exalted Highness. He is the only one who had the title amongst the Indian princes of His Exalted Highness. So the princes never wanted freedom, but it is people like Nehru, Patel, and Mountbatten who believed in the idea and ideal of India, and they believed that in a unified India, you could not merely have the provinces who were outside the ambit of the princely states to come into India. Freedom was not meant for those provinces alone. Freedom was for the whole of India. And when I say the whole of India, it included all the 565 princely states.
Now, there was an ongoing subsidiary alliance that the princes had with the British Crown. Did the princes, in your opinion, expect the same arrangement to transfer to the Union of India?
Well, actually, it is in June, or was it July 15, when Mountbatten called the princes, brought them to Delhi. Mind you, the princes together, representing the British monarchy in India, actually had something called Narendra Mandal, which was the Chamber of Princes. And the Chancellor of the Chamber of Princes was the Nawab of Bhopal, Hamidullah Khan, who ultimately became the chief saboteur and was trying his level best to ensure that the princes stayed out of the ambit of Hindustan and Pakistan. But the princes always, mind you, thought that they should stay out. It is Nehru who started the process. Then it is Mountbatten again. Like I said, I think it's June 15 or July 15 when he calls them. He calls them to what is now Rashtrapati Bhavan and gives them a shellacking which the princes are completely taken by surprise. They simply can't understand how the man who came as the ADC to the king when the king last arrived in India has now gone completely against the princes. And he does not understand the concept of paramountcy. He does not understand the concept of treaties through which they were aligned to the British monarchy. And he lambasted the princes and he told them that there is no choice open for you. You have to sign a standstill agreement with either India or Pakistan as the dominions go in, as the dominions are formed after independence on August 14 and 15. The Nawab of Bhopal is shaken. He's virtually in tears. There are other princes who are completely shaken by what Mountbatten has just told them. It is such a fiercely argued pitch from Mountbatten, which takes the, as they say, the stuffing out of the princes, and the princes are completely dismayed, and they believe. And Nawab of Bhopal is on record, and there is a letter to that effect, which says that the princes, and particularly the Nawab of Bhopal, has been sold out by the decolonizer called Mountbatten.
It's interesting that you mentioned the Chamber of Princes because it was set up on the recommendation of the Montfort Committee, and it was after Congress had actually appealed to the princes to grant full responsible government to the people. So there was clearly a lot of pressure on Nehru and Gandhi. And Gandhi, in fact, even in the second roundtable conference, said that you don't have to toe the, you shouldn't toe the British line, and you should, make it easier for us to get independence for the country. So there
So
must have
two
been
things.
enormous pressure on these
Yeah, so
leaders.
two things here. One, the Chamber of Princes or Narendra Mandal is actually called the bastard child of the Montagu-Chelmsford reforms. It is actually called the bastard child because it was born out of the Montagu-Chelmsford reforms. And the Indian National Congress never believed in it, never understood it, never accepted it. But it is Mahatma Gandhi whose role in all this is actually quite questionable. I'll tell you why. Because
Yeah.
Mahatma Gandhi, virtually till the end, believed in the concept of the princes being the trustees and the princes looking after the people as the trustees. Now, let's understand Gandhiji himself was from Rajkot. His father was virtually I think, the prime minister equivalent of the Thakur of Rajkot. So Gandhiji was not ambivalent to the princes like Nehru, Patel, and some of the other Congress leaders like Bose at that time. It is Nehru who actually front runs this whole thing and virtually goes against Gandhiji to pursue the princes. Gandhiji was always very clear that don't touch the princes, let the princes be. But Nehru believed and Patel believed that the princes could not be left alone simply because they were a part of India. And if you wanted a unified India, then they had to be part of that Hindustan. But I think somewhere Pandit Nehru says, I think when he returns from his incarceration in Domel, where the Maharaja of Jammu and Kashmir, Hari Singh, imprisons him, he comes back and says that India is my country and no state is outside the ambit of India, and I can travel wherever I want to, because he was stopped at the gates of Kashmir when he wanted to go and defend Sheikh Abdullah. So he was actually imprisoned in Domel for 3-4 days, and then of course the Congress leaders like Rafi Ahmad Kadwai, etc., called him back, sent him telegrams, etc., and he returned. But when he returned in a famous press conference, he said that there is no princely state. India is India. And actually, if you now go back in time and look at certain specific addresses that Nehru made, he always lambasted and fulminated against the princes. And that was probably emerging from his Fabian socialist thinking, the fact that he lived in Britain for a long time, the fact that he was anti-monarchical right from the beginning. And I think in one address virtually, threatened the princes, saying that you cannot continue to behave in this manner because there has to be democracy. And then he created what I believe is a master stratagem, which is he created an organization called the All India States People's Conference, which was a stalking horse for most of the princely states, where he used this to, pursue democracy through this organization called AISPC. And he appointed Sheikh Abdullah as one of the vice presidents. He appointed somebody who became his own personal assistant later and was one of his conscience keepers, as it were, Dwakanath Kachru, who unfortunately died in an air crash in 1950 and was extremely close to Panditji and became his private secretary, and did a lot of work for Pandit Nehru on the princes and later on Kashmir as well, when it was emerging from what happened with the raiders attacking Kashmir and the war that took place. But Nehru never ever accepted the princes, and this stems out of his anti-monarchical and Fabian socialist thinking. And this organization of All India States People's Conference is something that you have to recognize, because it was his creation. And it is only ultimately, I think, in the Haripura session or one of the famous Congress sessions, where he throws down the gauntlet at Gandhiji and says that, no, I'm sorry, we have to ensure that the princely states meld with the rest of the Union of India as it is now going to be immediately after independence.
Now that you mentioned the AISPC, there were leaders like Balwant Rai Mehta, Manilal Kothari, J.R. Abhyankar, and they were initiating reforms for the collective. And there was also the mass media, the newspapers that were coming out, and there was so much being written and said that there was new consciousness about rights and equality and concepts like that. So on the one hand, we have all this, and parallelly, you've written about the sort of the reckless extravagance of the princes. Like, for instance, Jai Singh of Alwar is an has orthodox religious beliefs. So Mahtab Rasul Khandi is splurging lakhs on his dog's diamond collar. So how do these two worlds parallelly exist? Given that these are princes and they're conscious of the fact that the empires can be under threat. So how does this work? Like, how can people be so lost in their own empire and a parallel movement like this about civil rights and social rights existing, simultaneously?
So this is a very good question in the context of the book, because the princes, you have to understand, were a virulent organism. They didn't believe in anything but themselves. And they actually were power drunk, totally and completely. Now, if you look at Nehru's experience with the princes and why he became even more anti-monarchical and even more anti-princes in India, it is his brutal incarceration in Naba in 1923, where he was arrested, imprisoned, and treated very, very badly. And ultimately, it was a brutal incarceration. And Motilal Nehru had to virtually get him out of Naba in 1923. Then again, he went, out of the ordinary, as it were, and landed up in Faridkot one morning and attacked the Maharaja of Faridkot, because again, democracy was not being allowed. Democratic institutions were not being allowed to flourish in these states. And there again, he did a deal with the Maharaja of Faridkot. And this was a time when the Sikhs were up at arms in Faridkot and in various parts of Punjab. Gyani Zail Singh, who became the president of India ultimately, was one of the young people at the vanguard of this movement against the Maharaja of Faridkot, which Panditji headed. And then, of course, finally in 1946, when Jawaharlal Nehru goes to Kashmir to defend, as I said, Sheikh Abdullah, and is first hit by the butt of a gun, where he's saved by Dwarkanath Kachru and my grandfather, who were both with him. And then he was put in a guest house, rest house, or the state rest house in Domel, and where he was jailed. So his upbringing, his thinking, his thought process was constantly evolving, and it was always anti-monarchical. And for these princes, they were in a different zone altogether. There is a chapter on how the Thakur of Rajkot treated Mahatma Gandhi and Sardar Patel, and just refused to accept. Now, this is Gandhiji. And the same Thakur of Rajkot, whenever Gandhiji would come to Rajkot, he would remove himself from the throne and allow Gandhiji to sit on his throne. But when talk of democracy, freedom, etc. happened, Gandhiji tried his level best to shake this man. He simply did not accept it. He refused to succumb to Gandhiji's power play, maneuvers, etc. Sardar Patel assisted him. Sardar Patel failed. And if I remember right, Gandhiji then returns, defeated, vanquished, and writes in the Harijan that I have failed in my duty, that I have failed to bring this man, to make him understand that democracy and democratic institutions are the way forward, and that whatever has happened in the past is in the past. So in different parts of India, Mysore, for instance, the Congress through the AISPC was extremely active. In Hyderabad later, the AISPC, which had been buttonholed in a way, again became very active. In different parts of India, some of the leaders that you named, Abhyankar or Mehta, but they were all at the forefront of this movement, where the Congress, using the AISSP as a stalking horse, tried its level best to undertake reforms. Now, like I said, the book deals with various issues and how there was a dialogue between AISPC, Congress, and the princes. Now, I have all that material, but obviously I couldn't write it because at one level it would get boring, because the reader these days he doesn't want something which is too voluminous or too bulky. But there was a dialogue with various princes at various times, and in most cases the princes always won, till such time as Mountbatten virtually lashed out at them and told them that there is no alternative for you. If you were thinking that on post August 15 you will be able to create your own little empire and the British would continue to support you, that's not going to happen. And that is where Princestan comes in, because this was the thought process of Nawab of Bhopal and Hamidullah Khan, that a third dominion called Princestan, and there was another name given to it, Rajasthan. Raj Asthan, which of course became a state in India later. But Princestan was what they commonly called it, and they thought they would get away with it, but they were not allowed.
Yes. So, since you mentioned Mahatma Gandhi's ambivalence, do you think it came from a place of his strategy, which was essentially persuasive, and he didn't want any sort of a revolt from any section of society to sort of destabilize the independence movement, and his methods were more towards assimilating, whether it's the princely states or different castes or Hindus and Muslims together in one battle.
Well, if you look at,
could he really afford to be aggressive like Nehru and Patel?
Yeah, please understand, I was born much after independence. I am not a history student. I studied economics. But from all that I've read and all that I have written, and all the research that I've done, and that has been extensive research, because this book has taken me 5 years to write, or research and write if you put it together. What I find is that Gandhiji's own father, Koba Gandhi, was actually the prime minister equivalent of Rajkot. And Gandhiji was very favorably disposed to and favorably inclined to the princes. So the Thakur of Rajkot was always seen, Gandhiji was always seen to be close to him. And as I just mentioned a while ago, the Thakur, who was actually a nutcase and quite diabolical, would actually vacate his throne when Gandhiji would come to Rajkot. And Gandhiji would then sit on the throne and he would sit by his side. But when push came to shove, and all the pulls and pressures of democracy were being touted, This man did not budge. And if you read those articles that Gandhiji himself has written in the Harijan, where he says that I have been defeated, vanquished, and he was, virtually in disrepair. That how is it that this has happened? Yes, of course, you're right. That Gandhiji believed in an amorphous India. He believed that everybody has an equal role to play, which was right because India is a complex country, unlike any other country. There are people of all hues, all religions, and Gandhiji's uh, hallmark was that he wanted everybody to coexist peacefully. Now that did not happen. As we know, he went to Noakhali in Bengal when Noakhali was burning. And
Yeah.
believe me, since Noakhali till maybe uh, a couple of years now, Bengal has always been peaceful. Bengal has never ever seen a communal riot
Yeah.
since Noakhali.
That
So
really was the Mahatma's finest hour.
so it was it is, I think credit should be given to Gandhiji and Gandhiji's message that
Hmm.
India is amorphous. It is available to all Indians of all hues, all colors, all castes, all religions, all creeds can coexist in this country. And I think for most part, in these 70 odd years, we've seen that it has worked. If you look at all our neighbors, you look at Pakistan, you look at Nepal, you look at Bangladesh, you look at Sri Lanka.
Hmm.
And even in our own country, we've seen assassinations. We've seen assassinations of Mahatma Gandhi himself,
Yeah.
Indira Gandhi, Rajiv Gandhi. But we are, despite everything, one whole, unlike all our neighbors which are constantly warring with one another.
Exactly. You quoted A.G. Noorani's 2013 Frontline article in which he wrote that Patel had outsourced the task of procuring accession to Mountbatten and VP Menon, and that the credit of unification must go to these two. To what extent do you agree with him? And what is your understanding of Patel's role?
See, there is an exchange between Mountbatten and Patel, which is documented in the book and is now part of history, where what Mountbatten did once Churchill lost the election, Attlee came to power, and Attlee recalled Archibald Wavell, who was the viceroy and very close to Churchill. Uh, uh, Mountbatten's thinking was predicated on doing whatever he had to do very quickly. And that's why you see him abbreviating the timeline. June 30th, 1948 becomes August 14 and 15, 1947 itself. So Patel, what Mountbatten did thereafter, as soon as he arrived in India, is that he held a series of confabulations.
Hmm.
So there was a meeting with Gandhiji, there was a meeting with Sardar Patel, Nehru, one after the other. There is a famous meeting with Nehru where Nehru asked him a very pointed and pertinent question. Immediately, this I think is the first meeting itself between Nehru and
Hmm.
Mountbatten, where Nehru says, Lord Mountbatten, do you have plenipotentiary powers?
Hmm.
Now, that is a crucial question that Nehru asked. And Mountbatten says yes, which means that Mountbatten is virtually going to be the decolonizer. This is not, the end game is here for the British Raj. Patel's exchange with Mountbatten in one of those meetings is, can you, I will close this if you give me the full basket of apples.
Hmm.
A reference to all 565 princes. Will Mountbatten bring all 565 apples and give Patel the basket? But Patel asks him straight. Mountbatten says yes. And then, of course, once those apples are given on June 15 or is it July 15, 1947, through that absolute lashing that these princes get from Mountbatten, the basket is clear. All 565 are available for picking and taking. It is then that Patel takes the baton because he is appointed in July 1947, along with him being the home minister, he is appointed the minister of states. It is then that Patel takes the role of bringing the princes, corralling the princes, and bringing them into the fold. And there he uses VP Menon. VP Menon has already worked with Mountbatten. VP Menon is a hard nosed, tough bureaucrat who knows how to deal with these things. VP Menon is then used by Patel, who outsources him and Menon is one of those actually invisible men who has never been rewarded. Because if you read his Integration of Indian States, it's a fascinating study of how he went about it. He traveled endlessly. He worked tirelessly. He went from one part of India, from Orissa to Bhavnagar. He traveled across the length and breadth of this country, meeting all the princes, talking to those princes. Even when we get the instrument of accession signed from Hari Singh, it is VP Menon. So it is always VP Menon. And Patel is smart enough to understand that here is a guy who can deliver the basket of apples that he asked for. And Mountbatten delivered it to him. Patel outsourced it to Menon. But remember, Patel was always considered a very tough negotiator. And the princes knew that when they came to Patel, or when it came to Patel, Patel would give no quarter and ask for none. And which is what he did. So thereafter, he goes about reorganizing the states, taking control of various states. Bhavnagar alone had, I think, 50, 60 small little splinter states. Then he brings them together. A referendum is actually held in Junagadh. We talk about a referendum never having taken place in Jammu and Kashmir, but that is for a different reason, because the raiders took away half of Jammu and Kashmir. But a referendum took place in Junagadh, where
Thanks to Patel.
98% of the people voted for India. And
Exactly.
Zulfikar Ali Bhutto's father was the Prime Minister of Junagadh. So then Patel and Menon go about closing this entire loop, and that's how India is formed. But by then, Nehru has given up most of it. And Mountbatten, of course, Nehru is now, after October 26, when Kashmir actually accedes to India, Nehru is then taken up with the war, etc., which then goes on for a long time. But even in that meeting in 17 York Road, the Prime Minister's residence, when VP Menon, along with Sam Manekshaw and other people, actually bring the instrument of accession signed, and where Dominique Lapierre and Larry Collins have famously quoted Menon as saying, "The bastard has signed it." It is Patel who tells a wavering Nehru, "Do you want Kashmir?" When Nehru is vacillating on sending troops, Sardar Baldev Singh is present, Sheikh Abdullah is sitting in an anteroom. It is Nehru who is told by Patel, "Do you want Kashmir?" It is only then that a wavering Nehru says, "Okay," because the instrument of accession has come. And then, of course, the troops, the Sikhs, are airlifted in Dakotas and sent to Kashmir. And then the battle begins to save Kashmir.
Of course, 2 points here. Of course, once you mentioned that Edwina Mountbatten sent VP Menon to Shimla to discuss the Mountbatten plan with the Viceroy and with Nehru. Secondly, coming to Junagadh, there's quite recently, a new map of Pakistan has surfaced which shows Junagadh as part of Pakistan. So you've referred to this very rightly as Jinnah's mischief. So, what is your opinion of this recurring claim of Junagadh, despite the referendum being held on Patel's insistence?
So let me break it down. I think the bit about Edwina Mountbatten is very, very important, because independence would not have come as early as it did if Edwina Mountbatten had not been there. And let me explain again to you why that happened. It is Edwina who tells VP Menon, as you said, and as I've written in the book, she calls VP Menon and tells VP Menon that go to Shimla, because both Nehru and Mountbatten are present in Shimla. And Menon is convinced that Edwina has something, because the Dicky Bird plan, as Mountbatten's plan was called, is not working. So Menon actually goes to Shimla, works on the Dicky Bird plan, meets Nehru, ratifies the plan, goes to Mountbatten, who's also in Shimla. Mountbatten approves of the plan. Menon then calls up Patel and explains how both of them have gone beyond the Dicky Bird plan, and there is a new plan. And both Mountbatten and Nehru have approved it. Patel asks Menon, "Are you sure that everything is in place? Are you happy with the contours of what you see and what you've done? Is the construct of this new India uh, exactly what we want? And Menon answers in the affirmative to Patel, and Patel gives him the thumbs up. And that is how India was created. So, mind you, the people who are being vilified, Edwina Mountbatten, the people who are being vilified, Jawaharlal Nehru, or even Lord Mountbatten, these are the people who actually wrote that plan, which is India today. And it is Patel who, again, please understand, it is this trinity. Again, it is this trinity: Nehru, Mountbatten, Patel. At all times in the run up to the independence of India, these three play a crucial role. Now, coming to Junagadh. So, why is it that Jinnah is constantly playing mischief? It is not Junagadh alone where Jinnah is playing mischief. It is Jinnah who is the mastermind of the plan to keep a bit of India. It is Churchill, Jinnah, Wavell, Nawab of Bhopal, Nizam of Hyderabad, Maharaja of Travancore, Maharaja of Kashmir, his Prime Minister of that time, Ramchandra Kak, the Prime Minister of Travancore, C.P. Ramaswamy Iyer, and of course, a very crucial figure called Sir Conrad Corfield, who is the British political department boss. So this is like the Secret Service of the Brits in the Raj, which is controlled by a man called Sir Conrad Corfield. Every resident in every state
I think we've seem to have lost Sandeep ji. Anyone from the organizers here? Is there anybody from the organizers? Anyone from KLF? So I think Sandeep ji's he'll just join us in a bit. But this is a very exciting session on his book Princestan, which is about a lot of these, which is about the history of the princely states and the kind of negotiations that took place to make the country what it is today, and the role that Nehru, Mountbatten, and Patel played. And this is what we've been discussing. And we'll just resume our discussion in just a couple of seconds. Till then, in case anyone has a question, please feel free to ask so that Sandeep ji can take it as soon as he's back on. So it's a fascinating book published by Rupa. All the history buffs out there. This is a very good granular detailing of the history of the princely states in India, and it covers nearly every state and every region, and how each of them, although the design of the princely state was the same, but each of them had their own unique character, had their own vested interests, and acted differently. So we are just waiting for Sandeep ji to join us again. Okay, so we do have a question about the rulers of Bikaner and Johar. Okay, we will take that question as soon as he's back on. So I think some fascinating questions are coming up about the pragmatic approach of Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, vision, tact, diplomacy of Pandit Nehru. There, I think we have him back. Hi, welcome back.
Yeah, I'm sorry there was a power cut. That's why I'm sorry about the power cut. So we're back again.
Yes, it's been 70 plus years since independence, and we still have power cuts.
We are lucky to have power at all. There are large parts of India where there is no power even today.
Yes, that's debatable. Although the government says it's fully electrified now.
Exactly, but I don't think that's the case.
Coming back to, you were talking about Junagadh and Jinnah's mischief.
So
Your there's a problem with your video.
just a minute.
Just turn it on. Hopefully, we've not lost much of our audience because it's a very interesting discussion.
Okay,
Yes.
I'm back.
Yeah.
Can you see me?
All
Yeah.
right. Go.
Okay. So I was saying the actual mastermind of the entire diabolical plan to bifurcate India or for the British to keep a bit of India
We've lost your audio.
Sorry. Can
Yeah.
you see me now?
Yeah. I can hear you and see you.
Okay. So it is Jinnah. Actually, these are the 4 5 dramatis personae who attempted, or rather were behind this conspiracy. So there is Churchill himself, who is Prime
Yeah.
Minister at that time. There is Wavell, his Viceroy in India. There
Mm.
is Sir Conrad Corfield, who is the Svengali behind the shadows. He's the boss of the British political department. So, as the boss of the British political department, he controls each and every British resident in each and every one of the states. So, the resident through paramountcy is the boss of each and every state in India. And these residents all kowtowed to Sir Conrad Corfield. So these are the people, along with Nawab of Bhopal, Nizam of Hyderabad, the Prime Minister of Jammu and Kashmir, Ramchandra Kak, the Prime Minister of Travancore, C.P. Ramaswamy Iyer. All these people tried their best to keep a bit of India. And this is on record. Churchill calling Wavell to his office before, of course, he is ousted in the election, and telling Wavell as he leaves that ensure that we keep a bit of India. That conspiracy is Princess.
Yeah. So, Veer Savarkar had said that Travancore, which is a Hindu state, must declare itself independent. Now, was there a sort of a lack of a common perception about the integration of what the integration of states is actually about, whether it's cultural or religious? Was there a common idea at all?
Well, the idea comes from Nehru and Patel that there has to be a unified India. If there is a landmass called India, then, and if you're doing a partition where there is a Pakistan and a Hindustan, then the Hindustan has to be one. You cannot have a bit of Britain in the middle of India in Hyderabad, or you cannot have a bit of Pakistan in India through XYZ, or you cannot have a Travancore in the middle of India. With its allegiance to the British Empire. No, you can't have any of that. And that's why each and every one of them was quarreled. But please understand, every large princely state thought of remaining independent. Travancore, of course, used what its beach sands had, which is called thorium, which was some sort of a radioactive mineral in the
Yeah.
sands on the beaches of Travancore. And it did a deal with a British company so that giving them thorium, it would remain independent. Each and every state tried its best. Maharaja of Kashmir tried his best. He did not sign the standstill agreement with India. He signed the standstill agreement with Pakistan. And when the Pakistanis started attacking him, sending the raiders on October 26th, or actually even before that, on the 25th and 24th, the raiders left and took the road to Muzaffarabad, and then of course reached Baramulla, where the famous Sherwani incident took place, where he held them off, and then they pillaged and raped the nuns in the nunnery in Baramulla, and they were delayed. And then of course they burnt the power station in Mahura, and that is when Hari Singh realized that it's over, and so he fled Kashmir in the dead of the night, and he drove down himself to Jammu. So each one of them tried their best. Ramchandra Kak would spend a lot of time in Delhi with the Narendra Mandal, with the Chancellor of Princes called Nawab of Bhopal in this case at that time. So each and every one tried his bit to keep out. Nizam didn't want to join the Union of India. And Jinnah, very smartly at that particular point in time, played this game and used saboteurs like Nawab Bhopal, Maharaja of Travancore, Nizam of Hyderabad to keep the pot boiling. But of course,
Yeah. So, your grandfather, Mr. K.N. Bamzai, was I think we've lost him again. Uh, let's just wait till he joins. So this is a cover of the book that's being flashed on the screen. So viewers who are with us right now, and who just joined us, this is a discussion on Sandeep Bamzai's book Princestan. He's just going to be joining us again.
can you?
Yes, I can see you and hear you.
Yeah. I'm sorry again.
So, yes. So your grandfather, K.N. Bamzai, was the chief of bureau at Blitz, and you mentioned the thorium. So he was the one who responsible for the expose of the export of thorium from Travancore to the UK, along with another interesting a story about the Maharaja of Bhopal's conspiring with Jinnah and Churchill to, as you said, to keep a bit of India.
That's right.
So in the course of writing this book, did you discover more secrets like this that your grandfather's blue eyes held?
The blue eyes which held all the secrets but never revealed anything. Yes, through those papers, a lot has been revealed. And actually, this is the second part of what I believe is a trilogy. The first one I wrote again for Rupa. This was called The Bonfire of Kashmir in 2006.
Yes.
The actual story of the accession of Kashmir to India. And believe me, there is so much more information that I have the third part of the trilogy, which I am, well, COVID helped because the first couple of months in COVID, you couldn't even step out of your house. So I did a lot of work on the third book, which hopefully should be out in late 2021. That is this year or early next year. And there is much more to come from these papers and from the treasure trove, as I call it, that my grandfather left behind.
Yeah. So you've essentially established that all of them, all the princes and all the princely states wanted to remain independent, but there were also personal aspirations of these different kings. For example, the Nawab of Bhopal, who was the chancellor of the Prince's Chamber, who wanted to hand over the kingdom to Begum Abida Sultan. Do you think these these personal aspirations, individual goals, sort of muddle the cause of Princestan?
Well, yes, because again, Jinnah promised Hamidullah Khan the governor generalship of independent Pakistan,
Yeah.
and that was the carrot that he held out to Hamidullah Khan, the Nawab of Bhopal. And the Nawab of Bhopal was besotted with the idea of becoming Governor General of independent Pakistan. And so he worked as a saboteur. So different princes, different carrots, but there are princes like the Maharaja of Bikaner who created the cleavage within the Chamber of Princes. And this is something that I've dealt with in the book, where he virtually creates a communal cleavage within the Chamber of Princes by saying that it is time for us to understand that we have to sign up with Hindustan. And this is communal because all the Hindu princes, then majority of the Hindu princes align with him, while the Muslim princes align with the Nawab of Bhopal. But the Hindu princes are in majority, and one by one they all come into the fold. But the Maharaja of Bikaner uh, has put out a white paper at that particular point in time, a copy of which again is with me. That white paper is a detailed exposition on why the princes should side with India. It's actually a dramatic moment in Princestan because as Hamidullah Khan and others try their best to keep a bit of India, it is the Maharaja of Bikaner, along with the Maharaja of Patiala, who backed for India constantly and consistently.
Okay, I have a question, but let's take Bhavani Pani's question. How come all history books and past and present authors limit India to North and Western India? Did India end at Bhopal, Travancore, and Hyderabad? What about princes in Eastern India, Bihar, Bengal, Odisha, Assam, and the Northeast taken for granted, Manipur? And I
No,
think Bhavani
yeah,
missed the initial bit. We started with Orissa, we started with
absolutely,
Western Orissa, and
absolutely.
the royalty there in Aran Singh Deo Swatantra Party, but
Yes.
you can answer
I
that
think he
one.
missed it. I think he missed it. And during Patel's plan for the reorganization, he reaches out to various princes in Orissa. He reaches out to various princes in Eastern India, and Menon single-handedly then brings each and every one of them into the fold. And then when the reorganization takes place, then he creates from these princely states the state of Orissa. Just as the state comes out of Bombay, two states come out of what erstwhile was called the Bombay Presidency, and then becomes Maharashtra and Gujarat. The Kathiawadi princes, there are a whole lot of them. Those princes have all come together and are now part of what is the state of Gujarat. So there are these. Pataudi is a small little
Yeah,
principality, which is
yeah.
which is just outside Gurgaon, but it was a principality and it was a prince and he was a
Hmm.
nawab, and he is counted among the 565, but he also aligned with India. So,
Hmm.
as I said, the Maharaja of Bikaner and the Maharaja of Patiala should be given credit because amongst the princes, they are the two who stand out, particularly Maharaja of Bikaner, who
Hmm.
writes this white paper, circulates it within the chamber, Narendra Mandal, and convinces the princes that this is what you need to do. You need to ensure that you go over to the Union of India. When you sign the standstill agreement, you sign the standstill agreement in favor of India.
So we have another question from Rashmi Ranjan, which is similar to one of the questions that I have over here. So I'll just combine the two and ask you. So she's saying, was it only pragmatic approach of Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, vision tagged diplomacy of Pandit Nehru, for which 562 princely states integrated with the Union of India? So now my question is that there's a story of the secretary of the King of Mayurbhanj who's going to Nehru's secretary, Mr. D.N. Kachru, who happened to be a grandfather's friend. But Kachru felt that Nehru wouldn't accept the proposal and that he should approach VP Menon instead.
Hmm.
So when the file was put up to Patel, it was accepted. So is this an indicator of who was an idealist and who was the pragmatist of the two?
No, like I said, this is a relay run. By July 1947, Sardar is appointed the Minister of States. So he and his writ run large on the princes. And there are instances of various princes actually going to Patel and saying we don't want to deal with Nehru because he's very curt and he does not listen to us. This is actually documented. And they actually believed that Patel, who was of course the Iron Man of India, was more pragmatic than Nehru because Nehru did not talk properly to these princes. He was short of being abusive, he was curt. So there are two princes or three princes, if I remember right, who actually go to Patel and say, we'd rather talk to you, we'd rather deal with you, we'd rather not deal with Nehru because he does not talk properly to us. He looks down upon us.
He
So
was probably a
Patel,
prince himself.
well, you can, yeah, political royalty, as they now call them, but those days I think Nehru was equally, maybe because of his British education or whatever, he was seen as royalty. But beyond that, he was not. He was not royalty. Patel is more pragmatic because I think
Yeah.
Patel, as two or three of those princes have themselves said, Nehru had a very short leash. He had a short fuse. So he did not take kindly to, some of these princes. And that's why they preferred to deal with Patel. But Patel was equally tough, unrelenting. And that's why he only accepted the full basket of apples.
Yeah. We have another question from Ashutosh Thakur, who's saying some princely states, such as the rulers of Bikaner and Johar, were motivated to join India out of ideological and patriotic considerations, but others insisted that they had the right to join either India or Pakistan to remain independent or form a union of their own. Bhopal, Travancore, Hyderabad announced that they did not intend to join either dominion. Please elaborate these points too for
Yeah,
us.
which is exactly what I've been saying. Uh, Nowhere, it is only the princes themselves who took upon themselves in their understanding of the rule and law and spirit of paramountcy, where they believed that they could keep out of the ambit of India. No. Mountbatten explained to them, tore that theory to shreds. Nowhere were they allowed to stay independent. They had to sign the standstill agreement either in favor of India or in favor of Pakistan. This is the misconception. This is where Bhopal actually tells Mountbatten that you have betrayed us in a letter. Because right till the end, their sense was that the that Mountbatten, representing the British monarchy and being part of the British monarchy himself, not only was he a representative, he was a part of the British monarchy. Nowhere did Hamidullah Khan ever thought that Mountbatten would betray them, in quotes. So the princes till the end thought that the Brits would save them. But the Brits said no. At least Mountbatten, I don't know about Archibald Wavell, who through Churchill wanted to save them along with Conrad Corfield. But Mountbatten's brief and Mountbatten's idea was very clear. He was the decolonizer. He had to leave India, leaving India intact. The princes were never part of any British operation once Mountbatten came in. Yes, till Mountbatten came in, and of course the princes themselves, right till the end, tried to stay out of the ambit, but nowhere was it given to the princes. But their understanding was such that the rule and law and spirit of paramountcy allowed them to stay independent. And maybe this was a misconception, and maybe this is something that played on their minds, and they thought that they could stay independent. But that was not happening. No. And this is the tale. The story and the treaties and the narrative explain how all this happens.
Yeah. You have a chapter titled The Deccan Revolt, in which you mentioned that the interest of the princes of the Deccan were differently placed from the interest of those outside, and smaller groups of princes were meeting, the likes of
Yeah,
Nehru
yeah.
and Gandhi. So, do you feel that Princestan was already a fragmented idea with, little people lost in their own little worlds, and there was a lack of unison there, which is why it was easy for, you know, not easy, but like, which is why it was possible to get them to sign the accession and join India.
Yeah, very much. Because as you rightly said, the Deccan, the princes of the Deccan, they approached Mahatma Gandhi. They thought Gandhiji would be able to help them. Then they went to Nehru,
Yeah.
but Nehru threw them out. So every big prince or a smaller prince who could ally with princes surrounding him, all of them, to a large extent, barring say the Bikaners or the Patialas and some of the other princes who were clear that they would align with India, all of them, in some way or the other, wanted to continue. And why would they not? After all,
Yeah.
here were princes who were leading lives, completely at odds at what their populace was leading. There was penury, there was poverty, there was no democracy, and the princes were debauched. They were, there's a chapter on the Darbari oligarchs, as I call it, who led lives which even the British monarchy would not have been leading, I'm sure. I mean, you mentioned this, there is this prince. I mean, there are these various stories about various princes, and if I go into that, it will take about half an hour. But these princes were leading grand lives. And at the cost of what? The cost of the people who they ruled.
Yeah.
And this is what Nehru was at odds with. For Nehru, it flew in his face that if you wanted a united, unified India, then how can you have these princes stay out of this unified India? And Patel was completely in sync with Nehru's idea. And strangely, Mountbatten too. And that's how he won them over. And it's not that all of them came in peacefully. Patel
Mm.
initiated Operation Polo against Hyderabad, surrounded Hyderabad with what is called police action now.
Yeah.
Kashmir, is a festering sore. Even today, the controversial accession has seen wars and wars and wars. And
Yeah.
even today, we are fighting a
Yeah.
war against proxies. So at Travancore was pressurized in a different way. I think there is Jodhpur who is pressurized, if I remember right, in a different way. So there were deals done with different princes, and
Yeah.
you have to credit these three people and Menon. I think Menon has not been given due prominence in contemporary history. I don't think VP Menon has got his due from history and from the government of India.
Yeah.
VP Menon should be given. Uh, I mean, he played an exemplary role. He should be given.
That's part of the problem. There is also the way history is documented, and the history that's consumed by the masses is documented. So even, for instance, even Patel's role is not really outlined in the say mainstream consumption of history of the way India was actually united, and the little details that have been missed out.
No, shockingly, Nehru's role has not been documented in how he behaved with the princes, or coddled the princes, or brought the princes to
Yeah.
heel. If you read his own
Yeah.
biographers, like Frank Moraes or Sarvapalli
Yeah, he's always
Gopal,
portrayed as this aloof, like prince
but that
himself.
is
Like he's,
yeah, but
yeah,
that is not the case. Here is a man who
yeah,
goes to Naba, is imprisoned, is
yeah.
brutally treated while he is in prison. He goes to Faridkot. He goes to Kashmir. At all times, his sense is that create a stalking house, a parallel organization to the Congress, because Gandhiji abhors the idea of attacking the princes. So create a parallel stalking house which will go deep into these states
Hmm.
and democratize the institutions and ensure that democracy flourishes. And which is exactly what he did with the AISSP. And this AISP is a brainchild of Jawaharlal Nehru and nobody else. It is not Gandhi, it is not Patel, it is not Kidwai, it is not Kriplani, it is nobody. And another aspect that I want to highlight, as far as the accession of Kashmir is concerned, uh, in the run up to the accession on October 26th, J.P. Kriplani, the president of the Congress, visits uh, Maharaja of Kashmir in Srinagar, is virtually thrown out.
Hmm.
The Maharaja refuses to meet him.
Hmm.
Lord Mountbatten is the Viceroy of India, visits Kashmir after Kriplani, is not met by the Maharaja. He's packed off and sent to fish.
Hmm.
The Maharaja refuses to meet the Viceroy of India for 4 days. Gandhiji then goes to Kashmir. Maharaja of Kashmir refuses to meet Gandhiji till the Rani of Kashmir explains to Hari Singh that this is Mahatma Gandhi. This is not anybody or nobody. And Maharaja Hari Singh then meets uh, Mahatma Gandhi. And this I've corroborated with Karan Singh, his son. And Karan
Yeah.
Singh has explained how Hari Singh then has a conversation with Mahatma Gandhi. Even then, Hari Singh is not ready to accede to India. It is on July 16 or July 18 that Guru Golwalkar travels to Kashmir, believed to be at the behest of Sardar Patel. And Guru Golwalkar then meets Maharaja Hari Singh. Hari Singh meets Guru Golwalkar. And it is said that Golwalkar virtually makes up Hari Singh's mind for him.
Hmm.
Even then, July 16, October 26, he continues to vacillate. Ramchandra Kak is thrown out after Mahatma Gandhi's visit. That is the big breakthrough that comes, because Ramchandra Kak is totally unacceptable to the National Conference and Sheikh Abdullah. Then Sheikh Abdullah is freed. Many things happen. Meherchand Mahajan is appointed Prime Minister of Kashmir. But it is Guru Golwalkar's visit in mid-July, 1947, that virtually convinces, but does not completely convince her. So with every big prince or Maharaja or Raja or Nawab, there were
Yeah.
complexities. And those complexities had to be dealt with. I mean, imagine Kashmir. Look at the roll call. Look at the
Hmm.
people who were visiting Kashmir in the run up to Kashmir. And yet it did not happen. India became independent on August 15. Kashmir
Hmm.
only acceded when the raiders ran amok. And Nizam does not accede. It is only in 1948 that through action, the police action and Operation Polo, he is surrounded. There is, virtual mini war, and then he comes around and the Nizam accedes to India. So
Let's
this
take
is
another
a,
question.
yeah,
Muhammad Ali, I'm sorry to cut you off. Muhammad Ali has a question. Nice name. He's saying, in Discovery of India, the autobiography of Nehru written in Ahmednagar jail, he had imagined and crafted the unified democratic structure which was due to come up and knew what the idea of India is.
very much and this
Yeah,
is the unified India emerges from the idea and ideal that Nehru thought of.
yeah,
It is a well crafted idea, a well crafted ideal that India can only be unified as one, where the provinces and the princely states, the large ones, the small ones, they all come together and then become one Hindustan. And you're absolutely right. Now Nehru, for instance, in the run up to 1947, when he became the prime minister, and even before that, as acting prime minister, when the British were giving up their powers, spent 10 years of his life in British jails. As did
yeah.
Mahatma Gandhi. For a long time, he was in jail, as did Sardar Patel.
Sardar
And
Patel.
Ahmednagar, which Muhammad Ali is referring to, virtually the entire Congress leadership was
Yeah,
incarcerated in this Ahmednagar fort. So
yes.
think of the hardship. Think of what these people went through, and yet they actually, the plan that they had, the vision that they had for India, as we now know it, as we now live in it, fructified because of their single-mindedness of purpose.
Hmm. Precisely. There is a problem with the way it is documented, of course, and like this is something that your book does, that it gives you details of the alternate heroes and the alternate reality of this part of history, which is sort of missing from the mainstream domain. Is there any other question? Did the organizers have a question? Because we've crossed an hour, so okay, I don't think so. Are there any closing thoughts that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I just want to add a couple of things. One, that while I was writing, or rather researching and writing, Bonfire of Kashmir, which is what I believe is the true story of the, or as I call it, the deconstruction of the accession of Kashmir to India. It is while I was doing that research and while I was rifling through the papers that my grandfather had left behind, and these are uh, documents which actually carry the signature of Sardar Patel, the signatures of Mahatma Gandhi, the signatures of Jawaharlal Nehru. And in fact, there is this famous telegram where Nehru sends a telegram to Bakshi Ghulam Muhammad in Kashmir. Remember that there were no cell phones in that age and era. So there is this telegram which I have, uh,
Hmm.
virtually the original telegram, handwritten. It says,
Wow.
Mahatma Gandhi to arrive in Srinagar on so and so date. Please take care of everything. This is Nehru's telegram sent to Bakshi Ghulam Muhammad. The telegram is with me. The original telegram is with me, as are so many other papers in this treasure trove of,
Yes.
well, information. It is while I was researching and then, of course, writing that I found these nuggets and strands of uh, papers and documents relating
Brilliant.
to Indian princes and
Yeah.
how they misbehaved with with the with the Indian National Congress at that time, and how they tried to keep a bit of India. I planned to do this, as I said, that it would work out as a trilogy, but it took me, 5 years back, would be 2015, is when I started writing this book, or researching for this book, at Nehru Memorial. And ORF was very kind to give me a fellowship to complete this book, and I researched a large part at ORF as well, along with Nehru Memorial, where Mahesh Rangarajan helped me out with some of the research, or gave me access rather to Nehru Memorial. Uh, Between 15 and 6, 9 years is when I couldn't do a thing, because when you're in a professional
Of course,
job, it's impossible to sit and do this.
definitely.
It's again with COVID and the first couple of months of COVID, where everybody was, limited to his house and couldn't move out, that the idea of the third book began to take shape, and I
Yes,
actually wrote out a large part of that narrative. So
yes.
I would like to believe that the 9 year gap
Yes.
between the first and the second, it'll only be a year at best before the third part of the trilogy comes out.
Oddly, COVID has been a blessing for writers.
Yeah, I would think so, because as a professional, running a media organization, it
Yeah,
is
yeah, of course.
impossible. And all my years, these last several years, I've been editor of various newspapers and organizations. So it's impossible because it's a 24/7 job. So this I really utilized these 2 months, these first 2 months, and then of course gradually as we came back to life, as it were, and started going to work. I utilized this time and optimized this time to put together the building blocks for the third book.
Yes, I have one last question, and I think we can close with that question. There's a Rudyard Kipling quote on how Providence has created Maharajas to offer mankind a spectacle.
Hmm.
Now, a spectacle, yeah. So now, what we see today in the modern political context, contemporary political context, is that people with money can influence policy decisions, and Maharajas had a lot of money. So, if such a situation was to take place today, do you think we would have had a country like India, or do you think we would have stuck to Princestan because money dominates politics?
No, I think there would have been complete anarchy. Imagine these itsy bitsy little guys, the bigger princes, and who knows, the larger guys would have wanted to take over the smaller ones.
Yeah,
The sharks and the barracudas, like the Nizam or Kashmir, was a very big princely state. Mysore was a huge princely state. The Nizam, of course, was a very big and powerful figure. Baroda was a large princely state. So Jaipur was not so large, but the Scindias were big. Holkars were big. Travancore was a large princely state. There would have been complete anarchy. If India has sustained its democratic values over these last 70 odd years, I think it is primarily because of the political process, the political parties, left, right, centrist, whatever. There is a sense of continuity. Democracy remains paramount, and the concept of paramountcy has been replaced completely by democracy. Those same princes are now part of the Union of India, and well, they don't get privy purses, but they've managed to survive. Some of them have given up their properties, turned them into hotels, coexisted with hoteliers, done a lot of work. Some people in like Udaipur, for instance, he's done a lot of eco-friendly work. So they've come to realize that old-fashioned uh, feudalism cannot
feudalism.
cannot sustain itself in a country
Yeah.
as large as ours. People have to be part of the democracy and the democratic process. It is the people of this country who have shown again and again. We've seen Mrs. Gandhi being turned out. We've seen the UPA being turfed out. We've seen Mr. Modi come to power, not once
Yeah,
but twice. And his
twice.
second innings is even bigger than his first innings in terms
Yeah,
of numbers. So the democratic process in this country continues to confound everybody. And the princes would have never managed to exist. There would have been complete anarchy. So it is a tribute to the founding fathers of this country, the Nehrus, the Patels, the Ambedkars, and various other, of course, Mahatma Gandhi for his great contribution. But it is a tribute to these people that they understood that India was for its people. And our constitution says that for its people, of its people, by its people, and that is what it is.
yeah,
But this concept of feudalism where unwashed masses could not be part of the democratic process because the kings or the maharajas or the rajas ruled it, and while they continued in their crazy debauch ways, spending all the money that accrued to them through various duties and levies and cesses that they imposed on the poor people of this country. No, that concept cannot continue in 2020.
So we're
And
clear
I
about
think,
that. Is there any other question?
yeah, I'm sorry, please.
I'm done. I was
No, I
asking if there's
just
any other
wanted to add
question.
that
Yes.
it is a true testament and a tribute to Indian democracy that we have
Yeah.
managed to sustain ourselves over this. I mean, look at all that has happened in this country:
Yes.
wars, assassination. Yet we've survived. Yet we remain democratic. Yet we do not move. We've held the line. We don't move. We've held the line, and we're holding the line, and we'll continue to hold the line. And it's all these values have been instilled by the founding fathers of this country. And I'm grateful to the founding fathers and all those other invisible, faceless, nameless people. People like Dwarkanath Kachru, people like VP Menon, people like my grandfather. I'm sure there must be hundreds and hundreds of other such people who contributed in their own small and big way to create what is India. The freedom fighters who gave up their lives in different ways, and the Bhagat Singhs, the Rajgurus, and so many other people.
Yes. And history is about documenting everybody's efforts equally and bringing everybody into the narrative. Whoever has contributed to building this the great nation that we have here. So
Yeah, but
I guess
equally,
we can pat ourselves at the back.
one last thing I just
Yeah.
want to add. Equally, I think the interpretation of history is very,
Yeah.
very important. You yourself mentioned a very important thing: this Marxist-leaning history that has, for some strange reason,
Yeah. Yeah.
been top of mind in this country and has captured Indian mind space.
The one of the reasons for that is that a lot of left-leaning people study.
Historians, yeah.
Yeah. I was once
I
trying
mean,
to look for a right-wing historian, and believe you me, I couldn't find one. It's
you
extremely
won't find
difficult.
anybody. You won't find anybody,
Yeah.
and that's why I think my contribution in my own small way, because as I said, I'm not a historian. I studied economics, and I'm a professional journalist for 37, 38 years now. I think interpretation of history by people, not me per se, but people like me, is very important because this contribution uh, differentiates from what we know of Indian history. I mean, Indian
Yes.
history is totally and completely left leaning, and
Yeah.
Nehru's own biographers have chosen not to highlight such an important facet of his life.
Yeah.
Even Patel's whatever is available on Patel, even that does not capture the essence of what he did. And I think the reorganization and integration of states that VP Menon has written, while it's a tome and it's extremely voluminous, it provides information. But the deals that were done with various princes, the way they were, systematically browbeaten, and I think there can't be a better turn of phrase than that, systematically browbeaten by Nehru, Mountbatten, Menon, and Sardar.
Yeah.
It is amazing. Imagine doing this with oddball princes day in, day out for a
Yes.
long period of time.
Yes.
Their
Yes.
idiosyncrasies, I mean, these people they believed that the world
In a
existed
world of their own.
they believed that the world existed because of them.
Yeah. Exactly. The devil is in the details, and you have details. So this is the book that all of you watching this broadcast should definitely pick up because it's a wonderfully written book. It's immensely detailed. There's a lot of, and although the author is saying that all of the detail isn't even in the book, but it's whatever is there is very good, and it's extremely granular. So I think we should just sign off now. Thank you so much, Sandeep ji, for taking out time to speak to us about your book. It's a wonderful
My
book,
pleasure.
and
I'm really happy to be here, and I love this conversation.
I loved it too. Fantastic! It's a wonderful learning experience. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Thanks.